Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Meridi Fernandez with the Strategic Procurement Department. It's really a pleasure to have you all here. With me, I have my colleague, Jeannie Wong, and just so you know, she and I have been trying to mitigate all of the technical issues this morning that we've had, and we were not able to log in through Zoom, and we had to use various computers and laptops and all of that. So that is why we're late. So we really apologize profusely, and so we're ready to get started. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to discuss the request to qualify procurement method, also known as RTQ, and this is really to benefit you because it'll give you the opportunity to learn, if you don't know already, how to enter into a pool, into a contracting pool for the county, and how it is that you are selected in order to become a selected vendor within that pool, and then you've been vetted, and then you can eventually get hopefully awarded a contract at some point with the county. So what is a request to qualify, or RTQ? It is commonly referred to as an RTQ or a pre-qualification pool. That's what that means. It's a method of procurement that's used to establish a list of pre-qualified vendors that are capable of providing goods and services or services in the future through spot market competitions. And in order for you to become capable, you have to show that you have the wherewithal and that you have the capability, the knowledge, the expertise, and that you've been vetted in order to be pre-qualified as a vendor to be in the pool. Entry into the pool does not constitute a contract. So that's very important to remember. Just because you're in a pool does not mean that you will be awarded a contract between the county and the vendor. It's actually just an acknowledgement that you as a vendor are going to be pre-qualified to be able to then participate in a future spot market competition, okay? And we'll get into what that is. And then entry into the pool is one of the phases in the two-phase process that may result in you getting a contract. So that's very important. Being in the pool is just one of the steps. And then there's another step that you're going to see later on that I'm going to show you. So again, what exactly is the RTQ is the non-binding procurement process used to obtain statements of the qualifications, willingness, and capacity to supply specific goods and or services, experience and or past performance from vendors, which are considered for the purpose of establishing a pool of pre-qualified vendors, also known as a pool, who then may be authorized to participate in future spot market competitions. The request to qualify has two types of pools. You have the closed and the open pool, okay? So what is the open pool? Well, these are typically RTQs that allow new vendors to apply and join the pool at any time during the pool's effective term. So for example, let's say there is a community development department pool for affordable housing contractors open. That means that new vendors would be added biannually. That's what that means. Now, closed pools, on the other hand, have a specific deadline for qualification. After the initial application period, no new vendors can then be added until the pool is renewed, whenever that deadline is. Let's say it's 5 years down the line. So it would be the vendors, no new vendors could be added until 5 years when the pool is renewed. That's in a closed pool. Also, the pricing is very important in when it comes to what it is that we're looking at. And that doesn't really come into play into later on in the next phase of the pool. One of the things that we have to abide by when we're looking at pools is step one is the vendor qualification. Very, very important. Section 1 of the county's general terms and conditions has all of the requirements of what it is for the establishment of the RTQ or pool. Section 2 provides the special terms and conditions. And then you have Section 3 that focuses on those technical specifications as to what it is that we're looking for. If we're looking for example, firefighter uniforms, and that is the purchase that we need to make, there's certain specifications and certain thresholds and certain things that we have to abide by the National Fire Safety Association and standards, things like that. So we have certain benchmarks and frameworks that we have to follow in order to be able to purchase those goods and be able to attain those services. Then Section 4 discusses the submittal for the qualification documents, which is something that is very, very important when you are trying to get vetted in to be considered to be in the pool. So what does the general terms and conditions look like? It looks like this. The vendors and suppliers in the pool may be invited, right? Remember the term there is may be invited to participate in future spot market competitions as needed. The spot market competition may be in the form of an invitation to quote or a work order proposal request. Both of these are known as the ITQ or the Whopper. That will include the specific goods and or services required and applicable provisions. So spot market competitions may not be restricted to suppliers or vendors in the pool. So the spot market competition, what is it that we're talking about when we're talking about that? It's basically, it's an informal procurement used to secure the pricing and terms for a small purchase order, for example, or a pool. The county, what typically happens, the county conducts spot market competitions through the ITQ and the Whopper. And the ITQ is used for the lowest price awards, which we're going to talk about later, while the Whopper really focuses on best value. And it's important to remember this because when we think of the different methods of procurement, we don't always look at the lowest price, right? It depends on what we're looking at. And so oftentimes best value is what we look at when we look at the totality of how much an item is going to cost us over the long haul of the product's life cycle. So suppliers or vendors must be pre-qualified under the subject pool to be awarded a contract and must anticipate the inclusion of the county Section 1 general terms and conditions in all contracts resulting from the spot market competitions. These general terms and conditions are considered non-negotiable. What does that mean? It means that you have to meet these terms and conditions. You can't not have exceptions or exemptions to the terms and conditions. Everything that's on there is required, and all vendors have to meet all of those standards. That's what that means. All current and applicable terms and conditions pertaining to a resultant contract may be viewed online at the county's Strategic Procurement Department webpage, and there is the web link to that. And you will be getting a copy of this presentation at the end of either today or sometime tomorrow this week. You will be sent this presentation for your viewing at any time and to refer to it. This is an example sample request to qualify document, and for this particular example is Section 2, Special Terms and Conditions. If you notice up at the top, the commodity here is the purchase of grocery and shelf-stable products. So this is an RTQ that will establish a pool of vendors that can and are able to offer these products. It will be used to solicit grocery and shelf-stable products for the county. The placement in the pool is not a contract between the county and the vendor, but it's an acknowledgement that the vendor meets the qualifications as outlined throughout the RTQ. Vendor submittals are accepted throughout the term of the RTQ for placement in such pool. So here we have a list of the definitions of what that is, and we went over some of this already. If you notice at the bottom under section there, term 2.3 for the term, it says the pool shall be established on the first calendar day of the month succeeding approval by the Board of Commissioners, County Commissioners, or the designee unless otherwise stipulated in the purchase orders issued by the county, and the pool shall expire on the last day of the last month of the 5-year term. So that's when the pool expires, the last day of the last month after the 5 years. The scope of work would be under section 3, like we talked about. So the scope of work really is to discuss what is this about, right? What is this going to be used for? Well, the intent is to really identify these products and make them available and provide these grocery and shelf-stable products for various departments on a need basis. So it could be for emergency management, firefighters. It could be for the senior meals that we offer throughout the county, for parks and recreation, right, for children's activities, other trainings that we have throughout the year, throughout various county departments. So all of these things would be needed and much more, right? That's why it says grocery items, products, but not limited to. So this is just a sample of the kinds of things we would be needing and or looking for, but it's not limited to just all of these products. There's many more. When we think about groceries, think about going to the grocery store where you can find anything that you need there in terms of edibles, right? So for edible consumption, you think of food, you think of these things, and you think of a grocery store. So this would be not limited to this. It would be many more things. And again, it would be for the usage of all multiple county departments. Section 4 shows you here the submittal form of what it looks like, and this needs to be completed by all vendors. So if you're a vendor, you would definitely have to comply with all of this, including looking at the information here, reading it, making sure that you understand the information, and then checking off on the right-hand side there where it says complied. You would check off to show the county that you understand and that you are meeting and complied with the criteria. This is another sample document, sample 2, and this one, if you look at the top, is for work gloves. That is the solicitation title. We're going to be buying work gloves in this example. And in this one, It will be established, if you look at the bottom, for the term, the first calendar day of the month, succeeding approval by the Board of County Commissioners. And the pool also expires on the last day of the last month of the 5-year term. And then in this one, it says actually the county may extend the pool for up to an additional 180 calendar days beyond the current term, and will notify. And it could be extended at any point based on need and based on what we see and based on the number of vendors. Currently in Miami-Dade County, we have more than 200 pre-qualification pools. So as you can imagine, more than 200 with hundreds and hundreds of vendors that can offer the goods and services that are within those designated pools. In this one, for example, this one is called the work gloves. The previous one was groceries. So these are the various examples of what the pools look like. For this one, the scope of work is that the vendor needs to be able to supply work gloves for various county departments on an as-needed basis. And these are the various gloves that we need, but many more, right? That's why it says but not limited to. So we're talking about leather gloves, mechanic gloves, disposable gloves, microfiber, cut-resistant, nylon, latex. So not just the regular latex gloves that you think about when we use during COVID, but you also need gloves for, you know, for the mechanics to be able to work on buses and their cars, and microfiber gloves and the leather gloves that are used by many other departments like police and fire, and the cut-resistant gloves and the parks and recreation staff that has to maintain our parks. They have to use gloves. So when you think of gloves, there's a whole different, you know, avenue of the kinds of gloves that are needed for the kind of work that needs to get done throughout the county. So there is a section 3.3 in this one here at the bottom that says supplier vendors are encouraged to source products from local manufacturers. Supplier vendors shall make efforts to secure products manufactured in Miami-Dade County. And what we're saying here is that, you know, we really want the vendors to try to make every effort to be able to contribute to the local economy so that our local economy is healthy. And we do that by encouraging that they use manufacturers that are locally based as much as possible. Notice that it says encouraged, right? We highly encourage. Now, sometimes there's going to be situations that the gloves that are needed are not made here, are not manufactured here. And that happens. So it is what it is, right? We still need to get the product. Although we do encourage this, sometimes we know it cannot occur and it's out of our hands. There's also an eco-friendly products and packaging provision to this that also the county supports and encourages the use of recycled, remanufactured, and or eco-friendly products that are encouraged as well, because as we know, you know, we are trying to go green across not just the country, but the world. We're on a green wave. We have been for many years in terms of trying to be better to the planet. And in order to do that, we try to be eco-friendly conscious as much as we can. And again, this is not a requirement, but it's sort of saying we support and encourage vendors that can supply this, that will, and we will appreciate that greatly and look to that more so than just the regular type of materials that are going to contribute to additional burden to trash and things that are harmful for the environment. This is the third example of a pool, and this one is called Elderly Meal Services. So for the special terms and conditions, you see here that this is going to be used to provide meals to the elderly across Miami-Dade County. And basically, the submittal is required to be able to support the program that the county has held for years now in terms of delivering these meals to the elderly and being able to support our local population by providing these meals. So this is another one of those pools that's very important because many of our elderly across the county depend on these meal services. So we want to make sure that they get the best product and the best service, and that we have vendors that can actually be able to be providing excellent meal services for the elderly. So if you look here in terms of the insurance, section 2.5, it says insurance is not required. However, insurance requirements may be detailed in a subsequent ITQ. This is the invitation to quote that we'll get into. So spot market quotes, vendors in the pool may be invited to participate. The spot market competition will be in the form of an ITQ that will include the specific services required and may include provisions as applicable. Now for this one, if you see there, it says the Elderly Meal Services Program is a federally funded, and so therefore the Section 1 general terms and conditions shall be exempted from spot market competitions under this RTQ, right? So these things are exempted, right? The local preference and all of these things that are listed there because it's a federal program. The scope of work for this one is really to furnish the meal services to the county on an as-needed basis. And the meals will include hot lunches, frozen meals, and then the high-risk boxed meals and field trip boxed lunches. Special diets, there's a provision for that there. These are the part of the technical specifications. You can see that the vendors may be required to provide special dietary needs of the facility's residents as prescribed by their physician. As we know, many of the elderly have limitations to the consumption that they can have due to illnesses or comorbidities, things that they're being treated for, like high blood sugar, cholesterol, etc. So we want to make sure that there are available options for the elderly and not just provide one type of meal across the board because one size does not fit all, right? People have special dietary needs sometimes. And then also there is here section 3.3 talks about steam tables. So upon request at no additional cost to the county, vendors may be required to supply a steam table at locations specified in ITQ. So the steam tables have to be the property of the vendor and they have to be responsible for the maintenance and repairs. So what this means is, let's say that the vendor is able to provide all of the food and meets all of the qualifications, and then they don't have the steam tables, and that's an issue, right? Because at some point we may need to have the steam tables. That's why it says vendors may be required to supply. So this is something to keep in mind when we are saying these are the things that we need in the technical specification within the pool itself. The vendor has to make sure that the vendor meets all of the requirements and not just part of what we need, but all of it. Very important to remember. Okay, so let's now go into spot market competition. So what is this, right? Market competition, this is step 2 of the pool, right? So now let's say you've already been accepted into the pool, you've been vetted, you submitted all the paperwork, you're good to go, you're able to show that you've qualify to serve on the pool, you've been vetted, and you're capable and are able to offer the goods or services. So now, step 2 is the spot market competition. It's issued to all the pre-qualified vendors. That means all of those vendors within those pools, unless sheltered, set aside for small business enterprises. So there are some small business enterprise measures that come into play when it comes to this. And what does this mean? Well, it really has to do with a gender and race neutral program for goods and service contracts that the county has. And basically, the business has to be located in Miami-Dade County. There cannot be a virtual office, very important to remember. And the business also has to have a county local business tax receipt for at least 1 year. Also, the business 3-year average gross receipt cannot exceed $5 million, except manufacturers whose number of employees cannot exceed 100 and wholesalers whose number of employees cannot exceed 50. So that's something for you to remember of what it is to be designated a small business enterprise. And the business owner can own only one certified small business enterprise or good firm. So just for you to keep in mind. The business owner's personal financial net worth also cannot exceed 1.5 million for each owner, another requirement. That's for all of the goods. For services, it's similar to this, and it's sort of the same thing. Also, the business 3-year average gross receipt cannot exceed 5 million, and the personal statement, financial statement of each of the owners for that service cannot exceed 1.5 million for each owner. They also have to have a Miami-Dade County local business tax receipt for at least 1 year. And of course, you would obtain that through the tax collector's office. So once you've been issued this and you're pre-qualified vendor, now you're in the spot market competition, and then you get either an invitation to quote or the work order process request, also known as the WOPR. Okay. The spot market award equals the contract establishment. That's what that means. Okay. So now let's go into the invitation to quote, the ITQ. What is an ITQ? That is, you're officially being invited to produce your quotation of the price of how much is it that you're going to charge us for the product or service that we need. So it's basically the price is the basis for the award. So whoever submits the lowest price will get the award. It's awarded to the lowest priced, responsive, and responsible bidder. Okay, so let me go back to this. What is responsive and responsible? So let me explain that. If you submit the lowest price for that particular item that we're looking for, that particular good or service, you also have to be responsive and responsible. That means that you need to submit all of the paperwork that's required, all of the signatures, everything that we require you to do by the deadline, no exceptions. That's being responsive. And then responsible talks about vendor responsibility. What is that? That means that the vendor has the capability, the financial acumen, the expertise, the reputational ability to be able to provide the good or service, the capability. The vendor has the capability to provide the product. If you don't have the product, or don't have enough of the product that we need, that means the vendor is not responsible because you don't have what we need, or you don't have the number that we need. That means the vendor is not responsible. So that's what responsibility means. Responsiveness has to do with format, with form, signatures, paperwork, documents submitted on time, deadlines were met. That's what responsiveness means. Now we're going to talk about the work order, or WOPR, work order process request, or WOPR. And this is a variant of request for proposal, right? And what this does is it looks at the best value for a good or service. So when we think about the best value, what do we think about? Do we think about price? Yes, price is a consideration, but it's not the main thing, right? Best value actually has to do with over time and the life cycle of the product. How much are we going to spend on this? And if you do the calculation over time, you're probably going to spend more on something that looks lower than maybe something that looks higher in the long run. So the award for the WOPR is based on quantitative and qualitative criteria. There is a review team that comes together and convenes through a competitive selection committee. And that review team will then analyze the submittals of the proposers of the solicitations that were received, and then award it to the highest ranked proposer, because there's a score sheet, and depending on what it is that the vendor is going to be willing to give us for a specific price over time, over the life cycle of the product, then that's what the ranking is. And then the proposer or vendor with the highest rank number is the one who wins. And that comes into play in terms of what it is that the vendor is offering. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we are interested in purchasing copiers for various county departments in the pool. And so it's going to be through the work order process, the WOPR. And what we do then is we look at the best value, and that has to do with evaluating various factors and comparing those factors in addition to cost or price. So if you're looking at buying a copier, it's not just the price of the copier. Let's say the copier is, or let's say the totality of the copiers, we're going to buy many copiers. Let's say it's $5 million for 5 years. And that is one consideration, right? The $5 million just to buy the copiers. Now, that's not taking into consideration the maintenance of the copiers, right? The toner that's required. If the copiers break, who's going to conduct the maintenance and fix the copiers? The county does not have the internal expertise, in-house expertise, to be able to fix copiers. So we need a vendor to come in and service the copiers and bring us the papers and bring us the toner and change the colors and deal with the screen and clean it out and do all of the things that copiers need. And so if we look at the pricing that comes in, and then based on the warranty and based on the amount of paper that we're going to get and based on the maintenance, we take all of those things into consideration in both the quantitative and qualitative criteria, and then we determine, okay, this vendor will actually give us the best value for our money over the 5-year or 10-year contract that we are proposing. And that's how we determine best value. Best value is not the lowest cost. It is the best value over time based on a variety of factors, like it says here, quantitative and qualitative criteria. So, well, before I get into this, I just want to say one more thing about this, the competitive selection committee. For contracts that are, for example, in an RFP, contracts that are $10 million or less, the competitive selection committee is comprised of 3 members for the review team. The contracts that are $10 million or more comprises 5 committee members as part of the review team. Very important. And everybody on this competitive selection committee has to be trained. There is a specific training that we conduct for the members of the competitive selection committee, and they're trained every 3 years and before they serve on these committees, just so you know. So my point to this is that when you come in as a vendor, you can be rest assured that the people that serve on these committees have been thoroughly trained and understand what's at stake and understand the importance of being able to rank the proposer correctly and understand the different components of what is the process, what is at stake, what is the best value, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to just point that out. So in summary, it's very important for all vendors to review all documents and follow the requirements of everything that is laid out to you in front of you for the RTQ in order to become part of a pool, a pre-qualified vendor pool. And then also when we go to step 2 for the invitation to quote, it's very important that you submit all of the documentation, that you follow all of the rules, and then that you understand that you have to be able to comply with responsibility aspects of it too, of the contracts, which means that you can deliver, that you do have the product, that you do have the expertise, that you are able to provide what we need. And all of these things are very, very important for you to keep in mind. Also, when you're not sure about something, when in doubt, reach out to us, to the designated procurement officer via email, always via email. And all of those contacts are listed in forms. In order for you to register as a vendor, if you have not already, you're not already a registered vendor, you would need to contact our vendor outreach and support services. Any vendor-related inquiries that you have all have to be directed to them. This is their email and their phone number, and English or Spanish, and they will really be happy to help you with any information that you need in terms of how do you register to become a vendor. Or, for example, let's say you are in the process of trying to register in forms and you're having system issues, you're not sure if you did it correctly, you lost a password, not sure about any of that. These are the people that you should be reaching out to for support, and they will be contacting you. They either answer your information, the question right there, or if they don't have the answer because they need to look into it further, they'll definitely get back with you. Very helpful team, and they'll definitely be able to assist you. Also, I just want to mention one thing. I apologize. We don't have our cameras on because of the technical issues we had. So none of us have our cameras. And so that's why you cannot see us. So you know, we are aware of the situation. So with that, I will open it up for questions at this time. If you'd like to raise your hand or type it in the chat, and I will definitely acknowledge you. Okay, I don't see any questions today. Let's see what we have here. I have something over here. Oh, Q&A. Let's see. Okay, so what is it that you're not clear about, Marie? Let me see if I can unmute you. Basically, what let me go back to that section. Spot market competition is phase 2. It's the second step after you're in the pool. So once you are already in the pool, then you would be invited by the county to submit your quote, your price quote, or your water quote, in order for us to be able to sorry, I think I muted myself there for a second. So the spot market competition is something that we issue, right? We would issue as a county to all of the pre-qualified vendors. So let's say, give you the example of the work gloves. We're looking for work gloves. So we would issue that spot market competition, and it's an invitation issued to all of the pre-qualified vendors under that specific pool that we have opened for gloves. That invitation would then go out to all of you who can offer gloves to us, and then that's when you submit your quote. I know it's a little tricky because we call it a spot market competition, but it's really like an invitation for you to be able to submit your price. Does that make sense? Okay, yes, great. Yeah, so it's really, we call it that, but it's an invitation for all of the vendors to be able to submit the quote. Okay, so Barbara says, is there an available portal to locate historical spot market competitions? Yes, I believe we do, Barbara. If you can type your email for me there, and I can definitely circle back with you and send you that link. I don't have it with me, but if you type your email here, I will make sure to, let me just see. Okay, let me just copy and paste your email, and that way I have it for Barbara Lucas. Okay, let me just do a copy. Okay. Got it. Okay, and let me see what else. What other questions we have? Yes, my name is Mirady Fernandez. It's M-I-R-E-I-D-Y Fernandez with SPD. Let me type my name out for you here. SPD. But I'm not in the vendor outreach services. For you to be able to reach them, just call them the number. In that sense, is there a forecast of anticipated spot market competitions? No, Barbara, it really has, and that's a great question, Barbara. Thanks for asking. That has to do with the need. So right now we have over 200 open pools, and it really has to do with the need. So sometimes there's emergency things that happen. Like, for example, we went through COVID. There was a lot of emergencies there, a lot of things that we had to get on the spot, emergency purchases. So you can't really, it's kind of difficult. Since we already have over 200, we've sort of thought about all the things that we would need, but you never know, right? In the future, there might be things that we don't even know we may need, especially with the situation with AI. There might be other things that we may need, and we don't know at this point. So good question. You're welcome, Marie Alex. Thank you for asking. Let's see, any other questions before we close today? Let me go back to the Q&A comments. Okay, you're welcome, Barbara. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining today. It's been a pleasure being able to share the information with you. And of course, I want to go back to this slide, this last slide, because this is the slide. You should probably take a picture of the slide until you get the presentation. That way you have this information right at your fingertips. Any kind of vendor issue or questions that you have, these are the people to contact, the vendor outreach and support services. So please be sure to contact them with anything that you may need. Okay? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.